There has never been a more important time to move in a vegan direction. Whether you're ready to start, restart, or re-energize your vegan or plant-based practice, this podcast is for you. I'm Michelle Olander, life coach, vegan, ADHD matriarch, travel lover, and smoothie loather. And I know that it's the details that get in the way of your vegan journey. But I like to believe that the obstacle is always the way. So every week we meet here where I translate the tools of life coaching and Stoic philosophy. I bring you actionable tips, some laughs, interesting guests, and vegan ideas for everyone at any age. All to help you veg your best. Episode 216, Small Vegan Kitchen. Sailing Plant-Based with Sarah Powell Fowler. Welcome back, my Veg Your Bestie. It's another interview this week, and I know some of you do prefer the solo episodes, and I know we've had a couple interviews in a row, but I've had the real privilege this fall to speak with some very interesting folks from such a variety of professions and lifestyles, and I think it's really important to share how many different ways there are to live a plant-based lifestyle. And I could sit on these interviews and spread them out over the year, but honestly, the minute I hear these great guests, I want you to have access to them as well. Sarah Powell Fowler from smallvegankitchen.com is our guest today. And the small vegan kitchen she's talking about, it's on a 40-foot yacht, which was a step up from the 30-foot yacht she and her family used to live on when they moved off land in 2021. I think you'll find Sarah is Sarah's a unique voice. She's a unique voice in the plant-based world, and she combines her passion for vegan cooking with an adventurous sailing lifestyle. As the founder of Small Vegan Kitchen, Sarah works with two distinct groups, the sailing community and chefs on super yachts. She teaches cruisers how to provision and cook plant-based meals in small boat galleys, and she coaches super yacht chefs on creating nutritious vegan menus for crew and guests. Sarah, her husband, and their 10-year-old son have been living full-time on their sailboat since 2021, and they're currently exploring the Canary Islands. That's where you'll be hearing her phoning in from today. And if you hear some crinkles and crackles in the sound quality, that's why. She's on her yacht next to another yacht in the Canary Islands. And that yacht they're on is powered by solar panels and wind generators, and it's all part of Sarah's integrated mission to promote eco-friendly and ethical food choices. In our conversation today, Sarah shares her insights from cooking in tiny spaces, provisioning for long voyages, introducing plant-based options to non-vegan audiences, and taking advantage of the local opportunities when they're visiting new places. She also discusses her upcoming book, which aims to empower chefs with plant-based alternatives and creative cooking techniques. So get ready for an inspiring discussion about conscious eating, sustainable living, and the joys of combining a plant-based lifestyle with seafaring adventures. Sarah Powell Fowler from smallvegankitchen.com. Welcome to Veg Your Best.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you so much. It's lovely to be here with you.
Well, I am so excited. I've been telling everybody that I'm about to interview you. And just to blow everybody's minds, where are you right now, Sarah?
We are currently on my yacht in the Canary Islands, which is in the Atlantic Ocean, just off Morocco, but it is actually Spanish islands.
My daughter-in-law is from Madrid, and the Canary Islands were her her family vacation every summer. She misses it so much.
Yeah, they're beautiful. They're absolutely beautiful. There's 8 islands in total, and each one is very different. And they're just fantastic to explore. And the weather is amazing. It really is. So we're very lucky and privileged to be here before we end up crossing the Atlantic and heading over your way.
Really? So where's your next destination, Sarah?
Well, after the Canary Islands, we're going to be sailing down to Cape Verde,
Mhm.
where we'll pick up the trade winds and then head over across the Atlantic. Now, where we'll land, where we'll make landfall, we're not quite sure. A lot of that will depend on the winds, the prevailing winds, and the kind of weather systems that are going around. But it'll be somewhere in the Caribbean, maybe Martinique, Antigua, somewhere like that.
All right. So everybody who's listening to this podcast is now going, Michelle, what? What is going on? Well, Sarah Powell Fowler is a plant-based leader in training other yachters and other super yacht programs. And I'm going to ask her to tell us all about it. Sarah, please let me know what you do.
Okay, yeah. So basically, my company's called Small Vegan Kitchen, and I work with the two different sections. So the first one is the sailing community. So people just like me, cruisers who live on their boats and sail around the world. And I'm not quite sure how to provision because obviously on a sailboat, the galley, as we call it, the kitchen is really, really small. And you just don't have the same kind of cupboard space or the floor space or the worktop space that you would do back at home. And so it can be quite daunting at first, and people don't quite know how to provision, how to buy goods and what to buy and where to store it. So I do webinars and online courses where I teach people who are on boats how to provision, but with a more sustainable, eco-friendly, and ethical sourcing and provisioning. So I'm plant-based, and all my seminars are with that in mind. However, 99% of my subscribers and the people I work with aren't actually plant-based. So it's a great way to introduce them, and they're super receptive to becoming more plant-based because they see just how wonderful and easy it is to cook on a boat. And then the other section, which is super interesting too, I work with super yacht chefs. So I coach the super yacht chefs in adopting plant-based menus on board for crew and for guests in the hope that they will realize just how beneficial these meals are. Because when you're crossing oceans and you're working all the time at sea, it's really important to have the right nourishment for your body. You know, you're undergoing stressful times, you're getting peaks of adrenaline, and you need to have the very best nutrition. And I believe that plant-based is that nutrition. And so I train the chefs in to be able to provide nutritious, delicious, tasty plant-based meals on board for their crew and guests.
Well, I think this is just amazing. So, all the things that we normally think in the world are obstacles to being plant-based or vegan, like not having enough room, they're not having a kitchen, not being a great cook, all these things you have in spades when you're living in on a ship, right?
Totally, totally. You're not always having beautiful, in beautiful weather. Sometimes you can be sailing on passage and it can be really rough and the boat is heeling over. Fortunately, our oven is gimbaled like most on sailboats, which means it moves with so it's always upright. But yeah, cooking can be a challenge. Things fly around and everything goes everywhere. So what I do is I teach them, look, we can still eat nutritious meals, but what we do is we adapt things and we pre-plan. So I'll make pre-mixes of spices, for example. And if it's really, really rough weather, we'll just take a jar or a can of lentils and we'll just add our pre-mixed spice to those lentils and heat them up in a pan. And that's super easy to do, yet it's super nutritious when you need it most. And then it's better. Then we can just add extra things to that, like some rice or some tomatoes or some other things, some bread or whatever else we want. But at least we're able to feed our bodies the right stuff in those difficult times when we need it most.
You know, I saw on your website, which is amazing, smallvegankitchen.com, I saw that you are looking to not only lower the carbon footprint, but also the water footprint of
Yeah.
of our lives. Can you tell me a little bit what that means?
Yeah, so well, the carbon footprint, as you know, is really important when we're purchasing stuff, but and we're buying, we want to buy ethically sourced
Mm.
products. With regards to the water footprint, it's all about using water sparingly. And that can be anything from water production for the products we buy. So rather than going to produce agriculture to feed livestock that we then kill to eat, which is just ridiculous in my opinion. But also the water on board we use is used very sparingly. We have a water maker. So we take this salt water and we make our own drinkable water, potable water on board. So we're fully sustainable with regards to that. So it's just always being about conscious eating and conscious living and being as looking after the environment as much as we can, because these oceans are our home.
Well, I can imagine that if you spend this kind of time on the ocean, you look at that resource, this, what is it, water, water everywhere, not a drop to drink. You have to be so aware of what resources you do have and the energy that goes into desalinating the water and using that wisely.
Yeah, I mean that's been powered by us. We have solar
Mm.
panels on board, which give us solar power, and we also have a wind generator, which we harness the wind, especially when we're in really windy places and anchorages with the trade winds, and we're able to harness that energy and actually use that. So we're, totally sustainable. Apart from the fact that to enter a marine, we must turn on our engine because that's a legal requirement. But apart from that, we're just 100% sustainable and having the least, impact on the environment as possible. And that's really the way I want to live my life, and how, we sort of present it to my son, who totally, he's 10 and he totally adheres to it. And yeah, he really likes the fact that we live with the least damage to the planet.
So you have to tell us now how you got to this position and how long has your son been on a yacht with you, adrift on life's sea?
We left land in 2021. So he was 6 at the time, just about to turn 7. And it's something we've always wanted to do. Both my husband and I, we sailed around the Caribbean about 14 years ago. We always said when we had a family, we'd really love to live that life, because it's just a very simple life where time is our resource. It's our most valuable resource. And we get to spend as much time with our son as possible. And so we all moved on together on a smaller boat than what we currently have, a 30-foot boat, back in 2021, as I said, and we left Malaga in the south of Spain where we were living and set off on our adventure. And we've been sailing since. We've swapped boats because 30 feet is pretty small for the three of us.
Mm.
So we've now got a 41-foot boat, which makes things so much more comfortable. And we hope to continue this life basically as long as he's happy, because obviously, his welfare and well-being is our priority. And as long as he's enjoying this life, we're happy to provide this life for him.
And so what kind of work did you do coming into this endeavor?
I was always in the food industry. And then I went into business coaching. And then when I became pregnant, we had just started an academy in Spain. We moved to Spain and I started an English academy with my husband. And then we sold that when I was pregnant because I wanted to really dedicate my life to my son. I'd always worked for other people, and I'd always thought, gosh, if I could give to my own child what I'm giving to a business, wow, I think that would be a fantastic way to give my time and energy. So I was fortunate enough, and I'm really grateful for this opportunity, that my husband was in a really good job at the time and working. He was a super yacht engineer, and it meant that I could take that time off, because I know it's not easy for everybody. And I was able to spend, yes, the past 9 years anyway, just being there and homeschooling my son and helping him grow into the wonderful person he is today.
Well, it sounds like a dream. It sounds like something from a early 20th century children's novel, you know, of some kind of wondrous, adventurous family. What? So your husband, does he still work as an engineer on super yachts?
No, no, we're full time on
Full
board,
time.
and whenever we need, depending on what we want to do. So we want to go to the Galapagos, for example, and that has
Mm.
a financial cost. So when just before we want to go there, we'll probably stop. He'll probably go and work on a yacht for a couple of months, or I'll be working with Small Vegan Kitchen, and then we carry on sailing, and that's how we support our lifestyle. But one thing is really sort of important here is we don't actually spend that much money when we're on the boat. When we're at anchor, we have our own electricity, we have our own water. I make all our foods from whole foods, and everything from bread to sprout my own lentils to make my own cakes, make my own, everything I make on board. And so we really live such a simple life, and we don't have any distractions from the outside world that people living on land have, which means really, apart from maintenance, the odd ice cream, we really don't spend that much. It's just basically food.
Well, okay. I feel like everybody has just called their called their boss and quit. I think this sounds amazing. So now we right now, as we're recording this, there's a very big hurricane aimed at the west coast of Florida in the United States, and
Yeah.
so you must run into all kinds of weather.
Well, yeah, yes and no. Hopefully, when we do run into those kind of weathers, we're tucked up in a marina or a
Mhm.
safe harbor. Basically, we spend a lot of time, because I mentioned to you how time rich we are because of this lifestyle. We spend a lot of that just on safety, and safety is looking at the weather. Do we want to go sailing at the moment? Is it the right time? We can get a forecast for a week, and then we can get forecasts when we're offshore sent to us. So we make decisions based on that. Our safety is the first priority. It really is. And so we generally get enough warning about these things to be able to plan ahead. Now, sometimes when you do get some bad squalls when you're at sea, you just have to deal with them in the best way possible. And that's why having the right nutrition and keeping you balanced, so you don't have those sugar spikes of glucose, which make you, quite nervous and hangry, means that we can make the right decisions for our safety. And we're really conservative. We've got our son on board, so we don't really, want to run into any terrible weather. But I do hope that everybody over there is going to be safe and have the least damage that can be done, really.
Yeah, well, the whole point being Mother Nature is very unpredictable, very unpredictable. We have to respect her, and I think what you do as a plant-based chef and as a plant-based educator, there's tremendous respect for Mother Nature in what you're doing, isn't there?
There is. It's so humbling when you're out at sea and you just see the horizon, and you just feel so small but so full at the same time. Mother Nature is just a wild beauty, and very unpredictable, as you say, and we need to respect that, and we need to just take more conscious living and know that Mother Nature, it's not that, we talk about climate change, and we talk about problems with with the planet and the world today, and how that's going to look for the future, and I don't worry for the planet. Mother Nature will always find her balance. That's how she excels. That's how we've been going on for millennia. It's the humans that we really need to worry about because we're destroying it for ourselves. And that's the one thing that I'd really like by switching to a plant-based lifestyle. We really have such a positive impact on that. And it makes things so much better. And I'm finding that the yachting community, because they are so linked, intrinsically linked to Mother Nature, they're really receptive to switching for environmental reasons, for ethical reasons, and also for health and well-being.
So, can you give us a sense of what kind of challenges or opportunities are there in preparing a kitchen, the galley on a yacht for a plant-centered, plant-based, or vegan dietary menu?
Oh, we just have lots of storage for lots of different flours because
Mm-hmm.
everything from chickpea flour to lentil flours, I have all my different flours, my spelt flours, my just plain flour. They are a big part of my galley. So it's about organizing things in storage that allow you to have easy access to the things you're using a lot. And yeah, it's really sort of looking at how much we can fit in the boat, where we can store things, because there are all kinds of nooks and crannies on boats. The most thing is to be able to have nutritious food all the time, and how to access that is just by organizing my galley in a way where the things that I'll be using regularly are easy to hand, because then it makes it so much more easier. I mean, we have a fridge, but our fridge is a top lifting fridge. So we lift the top, and then you lose your life. You lose about 3 hours of your life every week in that fridge trying to find things. But we try and keep it as organized as possible. But yeah, I mean, on other boats, ours is a very old boat. It's 40 years old. So on more modern boats, you do have fridges that open a bit more like on land. But it's a bit like that game of Tetris, Michelle. I don't know if you ever
Yeah, I
played
know what
that.
you mean. Yes, I do know what you mean.
When we're on the boat trying to get things out, it's all like Tetris, and it has to be organized in such a way that not only I can do it, but my husband can do it, because I might be up sailing and have to deal with something, and he might have to come down and do the food. So it has to be set up in a way where everybody can deal with it and can manage.
So I'm curious about that because I I am I apparently have a reputation in my husband's eyes of not labeling things that I put in the freezer or the fridge, and he finds that extremely annoying. I'm guessing that you label very carefully.
I should label very
Oh.
carefully when I'm working with your chef. Of course, we label, Michelle. But honestly, what they say is it the other saying of it's always the shoemaker who has the worst shoes. So
Yes.
yeah, it's no, don't do as I do, do as I tell you, kind of thing.
Right.
No, obviously it makes perfect sense, but sometimes I'm just, in between homeschooling when I'm making something, so I'll just pop it back in. I mean, luckily there's only three of us on board, so if there's some white sauce in the fridge, I know it's my vegan mayo.
Hmm.
And about vegan food is it lasts, so we don't have the same issues as we do with meat and dairy and eggs in terms of storage. So yeah, we kind of work it out, but yeah, that is the ideal. It really is. But I have to hold my hand up, Michelle. I'm not gonna
You're not perfect.
pretend. No, 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 not at all. I am when I'm working, but not at home.
Yeah, and the other issue if in terms of storage, I think most of us can relate to having maybe much bigger or more easily accessible refrigerators than you may have with you on the yacht. But we're also a big mess and can't find what's going on. And I don't like round containers. I like everything rectangular in a fridge. But I still have so many of these round ones. But they don't organize that well.
No, no, and you need to have as well. So the air needs to be able to circulate within these fridges too, because otherwise it's just imagine just like I don't know what you call them in the States, but we call them like chili boxes or yeah, the containers. They're boxes and they're cold and they're just rectangular, and that's
Oh,
literally that's literally what the fridge is. I mean, it's under the worktop, but that's literally what it is. So there's no shell or anything. So everything has to be organized. And generally, when I do my provisioning, so I'll go to a local market or some local stores and pick up some stuff, and I'll come back to the boat and I'll organize it really well at first. And then obviously, the more that you have people going in there, it does kind of get messy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, that's part of living on a boat. There are positives and the negatives to every life that we choose. And so yeah, but that's okay. As soon as we land, we arrive in a beautiful anchorage, and it's just so beautiful. Or you see dolphins when you're out sailing, and then you just say, you know what, it's worth it. It really is.
Wow. Well, I'm lost with you on this island and on this yacht right now. So, I'm thinking most people are probably a lot of the people who listen to this podcast are not 100% plant-based or vegan yet, though most of them are thinking about it or leaning towards that. I would guess a lot of people are surprised that you don't find it a sustainable practice to include sea animals or sea life in your dietary choices. Is there anything from the sea that you do use in your diet?
Just seaweed, really. I really, I understand that fishing from the sea is more sustainable than going to a market, and if you can catch it on your own line, that's way preferable. However, my personal choice is I don't really like to at all. So yeah, seaweed and the sea kelp, depending on where we are and what's available, is something that I definitely really enjoy to cook with. But apart from that, no. But again, I totally understand that there are a lot of people out there who go out and do their fishing, and at the end of the day, as long as things are done in a sustainable way, then I feel that that's much better than going to the supermarket to buy fish.
Yeah. The other question I have is in terms of fresh, what I would call fresh fruits and vegetables. Are they difficult or tricky for you to have on board at all times?
Yeah, sometimes it all depends where you're going. And what's really awesome with this life, Michelle, is that when you go to a local market and you just buy what's there and you speak to the locals and say, so what is this? Is it a root vegetable? How do I cook it? How do you eat it? And so it just forces you into a completely different way of life, and you eat what you have rather than choosing, which means you have a lot less waste as well. So storage of those kind of foods is really interesting. So we have potatoes and root vegetables, which I store in a paper bag, and I have that underneath the table in the main cabin, which is like our lounge area, and that keeps things, because it's cool down there and it's dark, and in the paper the potatoes last a lot longer. And then I have these swinging macrame baskets all around, and each one of them has different, fruits and other vegetables. And then, yeah, we probably go food shopping a lot more than the person on land would. That's for sure. We go every couple of days, just because we don't have the space, and foods can go off. I also make sprouts from lentils. So I get the sprouts there, and I make kimchi and fermented foods. I make my own yogurt. So we eat really diverse. And then whenever we can get to a market, we're always taking whatever fruit and veg the locals are eating and experimenting with it.
So what you just said before, that you think you probably waste less food because you are just eating what there is available, that's seasonal, that's fresh, that's local. I relate to that so much. My husband tends to be the shopper in our family, and he will come and get things. And then when he goes back to work for a couple of days, then my job is to eat the food that's there. I never think about ordering something new or buying something new. I feel like my job is now to eat the food that's in the house. And it's so simple because you just go, oh, what's there? And you eat it. I think in modern Western life, we've turned food into too much maybe of an entertainment, or like what would please me tonight? What would be exciting this evening? Instead of nutritionally organizing and taking great care with what we do have, what we've already invested in, and what the earth has already offered us.
Oh, I totally agree. And that's why I mean, even on land, I was always, very conscious about food waste. Although, I think the fact that we live on the boat and that to go food shopping is such an ordeal. So we have to get from our boat into a smaller little dinghy that we have, and we will row or use our electric motor to take us to shore. Once we're at shore, we need to drag up the dinghy, and then we need to tie it up somewhere so it's secure. And then we need to walk to find the nearest shop, all three of us. And then we pack our bag, which is generally just a backpack because we can't really carry too much, and then come back to the boat. And so, just by doing all of this, it just makes you so much more aware of where your food's coming from, what you've had to do to get it. You're just so much more appreciative of the food that you bring on board. It really is a beautiful way of living, I think. And yeah, for the waste side, it just means that you become so creative. I do a lot of things with the waste food. So with the waste vegetables, I'll dry them in the sun. So when I'm peeling, so my peeled carrots, my peeled potatoes, things like that, onion skin, and I'll just put it out on top of the boat to dry for about 24 hours. And then I'll just grind it all up. And then I've got a veggie stock, which I use. So yeah, I just like to reuse everything rather than just wasting food.
I think this is so inspiring. So tell me, when for your webinars, for your professional work, educating people who work on super yachts on how to make more choices of this sort, what are some things that really resonate with people that you teach that it had never even occurred to them to do before?
Yeah, inclusive meals. It's amazing the amount of chefs who, when you'll hear them talking, or on social media, they'll be complaining and they'll be saying, well, I've got a vegan and I've got a vegetarian, I've got a lactose intolerant, I've got a gluten-free, and I've got to cook for everybody, and it's just so overwhelming. And I think, yeah, I totally get that. That must be really overwhelming if you're trying to do one meal for everybody. And so it's trying to get the chef to realize that actually you could do an inclusive meal with add-ons, because you do have food is more than taste. It's culture, it's emotion, it's memory, it's nostalgia, it's all of these things. And we've got to be able to make sure that people working at sea, are well-fed, and well-fed according to what they believe is well-fed, because they have to feel in control, of their food choices too. So it's all about, well, let's make an inclusive meal that everybody can have as the base, the foundation. And then if you want to do some meat, extra chicken or something like that, because for the meat eaters, and if you wanted to do some a gluten-free special, or some soy, then you can do that as your protein source, and just be more start off with everything as plant-based. So even, your eggs, so not using eggs, using plant-based milk, and just switch overnight to do that. Because when you're making cakes, you can make delicious cakes and snacks and treats and biscuits, and you don't need to use milk, eggs, or dairy. So it's about getting them to make that switch as well. And I feel that once they do that, they feel so much better, because they're like, wow, I actually have less work and everybody's happier, and I'm able to feel good about myself because I'm getting a huge thank you off the vegan crew member who normally is sat there, not really happy because then they're not able to get the right kind of food. And I'm also getting, the Antipodeans who love their meat. They're pretty happy too. And I feel like I'm doing a good job. And that's what it's all about. It's empowering the chefs, and making them feel like what they do counts. And, this summer I was working with a high profile performance sailing super yacht. And when I was working with them, I know that the guys, that these were Antipodeans, okay? So really into their meat, lived on farms, brought up on eating meat 3 times a day. If I'd have gone in there and I'd have said, hey, we're all going plant-based, they would have just looked at me, got up and walked out. So you go in there and you just make delicious meals. So the first meal I made was a dal, a beautiful red lentil dal, and I made my own naan bread, and I did a special Egyptian style rice, and everything was plant-based and everything was delicious, and color. There was color everywhere. And the guys came in and they're taking pictures, and I'm thinking, what's going on? Oh, I'm taking pictures to send home because the food looks amazing. So by using the visuals of food, you can bring people on board. And then I would have the menu handwritten, and I'd say, oh, today we're going to be eating this red lentil dal, and you're going to get your protein from the red lentils. And we've got some turmeric in there for anti-inflammatory. And I would just tell them about the story behind the meal and why intentionally I made what I made, because there was a reason. And then of an afternoon, I'd be like, hey, what day do you guys go to the gym? Because I'll make you some beetroot smoothies with chia seeds, because the beetroot's really good for your health, for pumping oxygen around your body, and it's going to help you in your gym. And then the day after, I'll make you a little turmeric and ginger tea to help with the repair of the muscle repair. And and then they're like, wow, she's looking after us, And so nobody sees this then as meat versus plants. They see it as, wow, somebody's taking an interest in my health so that I can do my job the best I can and be as healthy as I can be. Wow, how can you not adhere to that,
Yeah, you feel respected and loved and nurtured and taken care of. I think too often people assume, especially when they're new or they know nothing about a plant-based or vegan lifestyle, they think it means giving up and restricting. And so doing without and very often people will come to me and say, okay, Michelle, but what do you eat? And like, I go, I eat everything except for about 4 categories, that, and they're like, no. But what do you eat? And it took me a while to learn that I really needed, like you do, to kind of give people good examples of what I do eat and what does make me feel nurtured and satiated.
Yeah, and these guys, they were eating, I'd probably say it was 85% plant-based. They had a barbecue on a Friday, for which they ate meat, and I would do one meat meal a week as well for them. And there was never any complaints. On the contrary, they absolutely loved the food. But everything, everything from their smoothies, from their milkshakes, from their treats, from their cakes, that nobody complained at my cinnamon rolls when they were coming out the oven that they were plant-based, They were just so, and I think that's just it, they really saw somebody was looking after them. And I think that's super important. And also, I think it takes the emphasis on meat versus plants. It takes the emphasis on I'm a vegan, you're not. Oh, do you know what I mean? It doesn't put blame on somebody either. It makes them conscious about the food they're eating, and they all said to me, wow, I feel so much better. I'm going to the toilet more regularly. I don't feel lethargic in the afternoon. And what I noticed as well is their meat intake was reduced. Why? Because the more plants you're eating, that's fiber. And so the fuller you are. And so whereas before, if you would, you may eat, quite a bit of chicken, for example, the fact that you've got so many plants in your meal that day, you actually don't have the space to eat that much chicken that you would have beforehand. And so naturally, but it's them making the choice, it's not me sort of go, oh, no more chicken for you, it's really, and I think just presenting it that way, they feel better. They know they're doing the planet so much more, help by doing that. And yeah, I think that's the best way to go about it. Dictatorship never created good change. It's really in leadership, and that's what I try to instill both in what I'm doing and with the chefs that I'm coaching, are leadership qualities, being able to understand understand the human behavior and understand that people need choice in order to feel in control, you know. And so, for example, another example was I made tuna out of watermelon. So I macerated it and I cooked it, and they were having a barbecue, and I was like, "Hey guys, I just made this creation here. It's kind of like a tuna teriyaki kind of thing. Would you like to try some? It's made out of watermelon." And so they were like, "Yeah, yeah, we'll try it." And they were like, "Wow, this is really good." And I said, "Would you like a poke bowl with that?" And they were like, "Oh yeah, that'd be amazing." I said, "Oh well, next week I'll make you a poke bowl with it." Whereas I know full well if I'd have just made a poke bowl and plonked my beautiful watermelon tuna on it, they might have
Mm.
liked it. It would have been too much of a radical change for them. Whereas I just offered them something. There was no obligation for them to eat it. They tried it, they liked it, and they even were really happy to include that in next week's meal.
Very, very clever. Very, very clever, Sarah.
It's like toddlers, you know, you've got to make them feel like they've got the power, you know, it's really,
Indeed.
they do, and they do have the power. This is not me being Machiavellian. This is not me controlling. This is me actually saying, look, this is what I do, and this is why I think it's the best for us. What do you think? Try
Yeah.
it and tell me. You know, it really is about sort of not taking people for fools. It's actually just saying, look, I know this from the science-based studies that I've, you know, done, and I believe this to be true. And here, try it and tell me what you think.
And all of us are more receptive to new ideas if we feel full, if we're not hungry.
Mm. Totally, totally. Yeah. And I think it's just, you know, the cruisers as well that I'm meeting, they're realizing that actually it's so much easier not to have to you know, fridge. I mentioned to you about fridges before. Well, fridges can be temperamental on boats. And so taking that added stress out of knowing whether the, you know, the meat you've got in your fridge is actually going off or not.
Mm.
And when nobody wants to be sick at sea, you know, it's just it's a difficult enough time as it is. We don't want to add that to the mix. And so the amount of people who go, oh, so I don't need to even think about meat, do I, for that 2 week Atlantic or 3 week Atlantic crossing that I've got to do? And I'm like, no, you don't need to think about meat. Afterwards, you arrive and you want some meat. That's that's within your right and it's your choice. But for provisioning purposes, you don't need to, and you can last those 3 weeks eating beautiful, delicious, nutrient-rich food that's going to support this active water-based lifestyle. And not an animal in sight. So it's win-win for everybody, I think.
Well, it does sound win-win. And I want to bring up, you had talked about eggs and dairy and making delicious cakes. And you have a book which is coming out soon, right? An ebook called No Eggs, No Worries.
Yeah, yeah. It started off as an article I started to write and realized I had so much to say on it that it started turning into a book. Basically it looks at it was written with yacht chefs in mind, with the idea of being able to be able to deal with dietary requirements, and also with the idea of using more sustainable, eco-friendly, and ethically conscious ingredients, and not needing to use the milk and the eggs that traditionally would use for these recipes. So I take them on a journey and show them a bit about my small boat and my small galley. And along this journey, I also take them and show them why we actually use eggs in recipes. What is what does an egg do in that recipe? So it's either for leavening or moisture or for binding. And so how can we substitute with plants? What are our alternatives? What can we use? So I talk through that, and then I give them recipes to be able to make them. Now, it's no coffee table book, Michelle, okay? So it really is a practical guide. The photographs were taken when I was at anchor with my phone, because obviously we're in remote areas sometimes. And the idea is, look, this is what I can do in my small galley. And it looks pretty good and it tastes amazing and it ticks all the boxes for nutrition. what can you do as a super yacht chef with your training and your skills and your knowledge and your creativity and the fact that you have a galley which is just, amazing. You're going to be able to take this dish and fly. And that's what I really want them to do. And so it's all about empowering the chefs to, I don't know if you've ever had a cookbook at home and you've tried to do something, replicate the recipe and looked at yours and looked at the picture in the book and gone, yeah, hasn't quite matched it. And they cannot do that because of the photos I've taken.
It's the reverse.
It's the reverse. It's, literally they're going to be like, what? Why didn't you? How come mine turns out so much better? And it will turn out so much better because, they have the skills and the equipment that, I don't have in my little galley. So, but it's all about empowering them and getting them to try. And we're doing a challenge this month as well, where if the chefs, so it's for private chefs or yacht chefs, if they can create an egg-free recipe and send it to us, we'll be judging them, and the winner will actually get their recipe featured in our book.
Wow. So you are a born teacher and leader, I think, Sarah.
Oh, wow. Thank you. I would love to think that I was, but yeah, wow, that's really, really lovely to hear.
Well,
that.
it's just, I find you very inspiring to just think about what I think sometimes it's so interesting for people to imagine, just like in children's literature, the boxcar children and, Swiss Family Robinson, you kind of imagine yourself in a completely different environment and like, what decisions would you make? What would you have to change? What would be fun? What would actually be fun to have those limitations? Because in our day-to-day lives, we're not thinking about the limits as much. But when we're in this kind of adventure mentality, then it's not a deprivation, really. It's an opportunity to be creative.
Totally. You couldn't be, it's so right what you're saying there, Michelle. And that's another thing that I want to get to the chefs, and these chefs have access to everything. And therefore, where's the creativity? There isn't. Whereas I'm on this the very first time we stepped on board our boat, our 30-foot boat. So the galley, I'm not sure, it was less than a yard long. Okay. Just to give you an idea. It's probably 3/4 of a yard long, and that was it. And I remember the very first night as a family we got there, I just looked at my husband and I went, shall we go for pizza tonight? Because I was just like, what am I going to do? And then the creativity steps in and you become so creative and so you can make anything out of nothing. And it's just that really is my, it's a bit like a lab down here, it's a mad scientist lab with all my creations. But I feel that, you give me 3 ingredients in a market and I'll whip something up, no worries, and I think that's what I want for these chefs, is to go back to their roots of what inspired them to become a chef in the first place, which was messing about with ingredients and coming up with something wonderful.
So before I let you get back to sailing around the world, Sarah, why don't you tell us what, in a nutshell, like how people can find out more about you, how they can learn more about you, how they can follow you or support you or see where you're going next?
Oh, yeah, that would be lovely to get people to join in our mission and be part of our community. So that would be amazing. And you can do that by going to smallvegankitchen.com. So that's the website, and you have a blog where I do a monthly newsletter, which you can sign up to. And there's no spam, it's just once a month. Basically, I have a super food for sailors column. Then I give you some recipes, use that superfood. Now, these recipes are all created within the confines of my boat in my small galley. So if I can do them, anybody can do them. I also do a Show Me Your Galley article where we get to go on board either a super yacht or a cruiser or somebody super interesting who's sailing around the world, and they show us their galley and we talk about food and how they do their own provisioning too, because everybody's different. And this month, actually, it was about a lady who's sailing around the world with a piano and her family. And her piano lifts out of her boat and she does these concerts in these most amazing anchorages. So that's awesome. And that's on the blog. And then I also talk about a piece of galley equipment. Now, there's no Amazon link to buy anything in that article at all. I don't believe in that kind of stuff. So it's really just me talking about a piece of galley equipment, which I've found super useful. And it's a bit quirky, but it's a really well-loved column that I write. And then I also, in my newsletter, give you all my news. So recently I was at the Monaco Yacht Show. I'm heading off to Palma tomorrow, Palma de Mallorca, to give a conference on gut health essentials to super yacht crew. I'll be flying out to Antibes at the end of the month to doing a plant-based nutrition course for super yacht chefs, where I train the super yacht chefs in plant-based nutrition. And I tell you all about these things that are going on in my newsletter. So that's probably the best place. I'm also on social media, but given the life that we have, I want to spend time with my family too. And I don't mind sharing things on social media, but I certainly am not going viral on that or anything. But yeah, it's lovely if you guys pop along to Instagram. So it's Small Vegan Kitchen, and on Facebook, Small Vegan Kitchen as well. And then if you're into more of the business side, I'm really present on LinkedIn, and you can find me there with Sarah Powell Fowler.
Sarah, thank you so much for inspiring us. And we're going to be following you, living vicariously, plant-based and vicariously through you around the globe on your yacht with your family.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you. And I hope that the listeners are inspired and empowered, and that they go on their own little journey after listening to this podcast.
So what did you think of Sarah? I'm hoping Sarah's experiences have sparked some ideas about your own vegan or plant-based journey. While most of us may not face those kinds of constraints that Sarah does on her sailboat, her story reminds us that creativity and solutions actually flourish when we embrace the limitations around us rather than use them as excuses. And think about it. If Sarah can maintain a vibrant plant-based lifestyle in a tiny galley on a sailboat, maybe there's not that much stopping us from doing so in our comparatively spacious kitchens and lives. Her ingenuity in provisioning and meal planning and reducing food waste, I think it all shows us that with a bit of creativity and a solution-focused mindset, we can overcome a lot of the obstacles in our plant-based journeys. I encourage all of you, all of us, I put myself in there, to reflect on our own circumstances. What constraints do we face, not only in our plant-based lifestyles, but in any area we're in, thinking, oh gosh, I just don't have the space or the time or the support for this thing I want? How can we turn some of the challenges we face into opportunities for innovation and growth? Every single one of us on our vegan journey, we're all unique, and your path will not look like anyone else's. And it's still valid and impactful, no matter how you go about it. So, to stay connected with Sarah and learn about her ongoing adventures and insights, you can visit her website, smallvegankitchen.com. Please, while you're there, sign up for her monthly newsletter to get superfoods for sailors, galley-friendly recipes, and updates on her latest projects. And you can follow her on social media, Small Vegan Kitchen. You'll find it. And maybe take an adventurous look at some area you've been thinking about as a problem in your life. See if maybe there's some wisdom in that. Maybe there's a solution it's offering. Maybe the obstacle is actually the way. We've talked about that. In the meantime, I know you'll find loads of opportunities this week to veg your best. Veg Your Best podcast production, music, and editing by Charlie Weinshank. Thanks, Charlie. Before you go, it would mean so much to me and the Veg Your Best team if you would hit subscribe, leave us a 5-star review, or share with someone you think might be interested. Something about algorithms, it helps bump us up a little in the rankings, and that's the best way to help others find the podcast and for us to find our audience. So, until next week, make it easy and veg your best.